This is the CreaseCast.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the CreaseCast. I am your host, Cody Sievertson, and with me, as always, is Lachlan Irvine. Lachlan, how have you been in the 72 hours since we last got together?
Oh, wow. I mean, I built a chair. That's pretty cool. I built a new office chair. Just been working mostly, keeping an eye on the world possibly ending in the south of our border. Just a normal week. Just how about you?
Yeah. I'm doing good, man. It's Friday. Weekend's here. This somehow felt like the slowest week of all time. Excited to watch some scrimmage action. Some serious news dropped today. It was absolutely perfect timing that I decided to write notes for today's episode and just quickly glanced on Twitter to see what was available to us to talk about in today's show. And holy shit, there was a lot to go over.
Unfortunately,
my God.
There was too much to go over.
Yes, there was so much bad news. We are so sorry for the next hour and a half that you guys are going to get to listen to.
Don't be apologizing for the content. No.
We'll try and put some positive spins and some happiness on this. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I'm a content apologist. I'm so sorry, but even with our quick turnaround, we got quite a bit to talk about today. Starting with the Canucks' first scrimmage. There's the pending waiver deadline for NHL rosters that's coming soon. The impact of some COVID-19 outbreaks that were first reported today. And then we got some trade rumors and then some sad news about some players that are opting out for the year. But a lot of pretty intense news in a short period of time. So let's get right into it. First off, the Canucks hosted their first scrimmage of training camp the other night. I was fortunately able to turn into Sportsnet 650 for all the game play-by-play. Shout out to Brendan Batchelor for getting on the horse and being able to broadcast that for us. I was able to speak to a few media members about a couple of the players that were kind of standing out during the scrimmage, so we'll get into that a bit. But first, Lachlan, were you able to follow the scrimmage? Able to at least check out some of the videos that like the Canucks Army guys were pumping out there last night?
So I was able to check a little bit of it. I wasn't on the edge of my seat watching it or anything. Like I was, it was just kind of had it on as background while I was working on a few things of my own. But overall, obviously some players stood out. I mean, Nils Höglander was obviously kind of like the big star of the day.
Sure.
I mean, Bo Horvat had 2 goals, but one of those those were set up by Höglander, and he's playing well. It's amazing to think about in such a quick period of time how we were going from, Höglander may or may not make this team. He might be in terms of like for the opening night roster, he might be taxi squad to, he is 100% more or less making this team, making the second line, like with Horvat and Pearson. It's weird because, I mean, on the first episode, we had the talk about Virtanen probably playing on Horvat's wing. Höglander seems to more or less have that sealed up now, especially the way that they played in even one scrimmage, especially now with no preseason or anything like that going on. It seems like he might have that sewn up.
It's pretty wild because, I feel like even in September or something, when the SHL season started, most media guys were like, don't get too hyped on him. Like he's gonna need a lot of seasoning. He's gonna need AHL time. Like he's not gonna be a Pettersson or Hughes that's just gonna slide into an NHL lineup and light the lamp and be crazy Calder candidate man. But here we are, 2 days into camp or 3 days into camp or whatever. 4, I don't know. Passage of time has completely fucked my brain.
Yeah, it's irrelevant at this point.
He's suddenly outplayed Jake Virtanen and like all these guys that you would expect to be in that top 6. And like I was blown away. Like even the coach is like, like his defensive game isn't great, but we like his skill, we like his speed. Like that's insane. It's kind of weird where fans and media are the types to be like, hey, coaching staff, don't get too crazy, give him some time. And the coaching staffs are the one like, we're gonna try him, we're gonna get him in that top 6.
I guess it's worth asking is how much of that is how much of that is because of how Hoglander is played, and how much of that is because the Canucks right side is a little bit barren of great talent in that department. I mean, does it say more about Hoglander, or does it say more about the Canucks, do you think, in that regard? I think it is Hoglander, more or less. I think it is him. I think it's that he's played his way into that, and I think that's big because there are some good guys, but I don't know, you might see different than me.
I think it's like a case of where on the right side, it's not that deep of a pool. Like you have Hoglander, Lind, McEwen, Eriksson, Gadjevich, kind of. He flips left and right. Other than that, though, like all those guys are pretty much one-dimensional talents. And the tie will go to the guy who obviously has the biggest upside, which is Niels Hoglander, as this, dynamic, shifty, speedy, like feisty winger on the right side. Like a lot of podcasts were talking about this. I think it was the Vancast, where they were saying, like, you have a guy like Cole Lind who had like a brutal debut in the AHL and then did all the improvements you would hope and expect from a winger like that. And yet he still can't find a way into a starting lineup, because that's just the way things shake out, where the tie goes to this really young kid who's, he's coming off of a pretty solid SHL sophomore season. He's, got like mid-season form already. So he's already got that advantage of having his legs under him. And it's a bit of both. It speaks to the depth of the team, and it also speaks to just like where Neil's development curve is at right now in this instance.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm excited to see what he's able to do against NHL competition, especially because he's the one player coming in with, I more or less the one player coming in who's actually played some hockey recently. Like most of them have not, are coming into this year. I think he'll fit well. I might take him a couple games. It will be more of a Gaudette situation. Like I remember when Gaudette cracked the NHL lineup, coming right out of college, people were already like, this is the next Ryan Kessler. And it's like, well, hold on. Like maybe don't go that far. Don't go that far. But he's going to get a good opportunity here. There's no doubt about that. And when you play with guys like Horvat and Pearson, both guys with great offensive talent, there's a good chance that you can really make an impression, and that maybe it'll be easier they'll be able to ease you into that spot pretty well here, especially if there's chemistry, which from one scrimmage, granted it's only one, there seems to be a good amount of chemistry there with Horvat and Hoglander right out of the gate, and that's not nothing.
For sure. And it might also be like a testament to like what the coaching staff's going to try differently this season. Like last year, we didn't really see Pettersson and Miller and Besser getting like the tough matchups, but obviously those are like the three best players on the Canucks. So maybe Green has changed his philosophy on what he expects them to be able to do. And instead of making Horvat like his ultimate matchup guy with Pearson, maybe he starts sharing the load a bit between that top six. And then that means Hoglander isn't expected to be like a Louis Eriksson defensive ace. Like he can be who he is without the risk of like, oh, here, you're going to be facing Nathan McKinnon every night. You're not going to be facing McDavid on every shift in this rookie year of yours. Like at the very least, he's going to get 8 or 10 games where he gets to like see how he adjusts to the NHL. Maybe, when other players start getting their mid-season forms, like we see a bit of a regression, but this is a huge learning opportunity for him at the very least. He's still young in his ELC. Like there's no real drive or desire to like make him an NHLer from the get-go. Like he's got time. He's got a spot on Rekla BK or whatever that team's called. So yeah, it's a Mercedes problem, like the Canucks have been so dead set on the safe option by having guys like Louis Eriksson be on like an all defense second line for Bo Horvat. And the fact that they're trying from the get-go in camp, they're trying this like young kid who's never played North American ice hockey on the second line wing over Jake Virtanen, a kid that they've spent so many resources into developing as this guy. Like that's huge. I have all the time in the day for Travis Green. I think I said that a lot in our last discussion, our last episode, about how I respect Travis Green's coaching. So yeah, like it's cool. I love it. Like I hope he keeps impressing in this camp. We can probably get into it, but there's a couple players that weren't really impressing in camp. I don't know. What were your thoughts on, like, say, Zach McEwen apparently not turning heads at camp?
With McEwen, I think maybe there's a little bit of a slow start aspect there. I mean, McEwen's obviously under less of a pressure to put points on the board and necessarily be a guy who turns heads per se, especially because in training camp, you're not going to, obviously one of the biggest draws for a McEwen is his ability with his physicality and his as well as his offensive talent and more or less in his defensive end work as well, to a degree. And those are the things that kind of aren't going to be as noticeable or as much a part of the agenda in a scrimmage against your own teammates. You're not going to be you don't want to throw your own weight around as much as possible, because you don't want to be the guy that injures an Elias Pettersson or something, right?
I believe Jake Virtanen did that in the return to play camp, and he got chewed out by Horvat for that very thing, right?
That's right. He went he went too hard at Pettersson.
I think he went too hard on Jalen Chatfield. He got like beat, and then he threw a late hit on Chatfield.
Right.
And because Chatfield like held back and didn't like throw a return hit, that's when Horvat chewed him out. Was like, what the fuck are you doing? You can't do that just because you're playing like shit.
Yeah, no injuring your own teammates in the scrimmages, right? So
which is amazing.
So bringing it back to McEwen, it's the parts of his game that are best for him that he brings best to the table are not the ones that are going to be as on display in a blue versus white scrimmage. It's going to be something that you only get against proper competition. I think McEwen, he's going to make this group. I don't think there's any worry about that from him. I think, you need guys like McEwen who are younger, a little bit, maybe, I don't want to say replaceable, but more, but they're guys who are, that are they're not game breakers for you.
Yeah. They're blue chip guys that are, at the very least, you're getting games out of them. Maybe they contribute offense. Maybe they don't, but at the very least you're getting something from them on like a cheap ticket. That's the best thing you can ask for, basically.
The best teams roll through them. The best teams are able to roll through them. You look at a lot of the best teams. The Lightning are a bit of a rare example of a team that mostly trades into their best players in their bottom six. But you look at like the Penguins of a couple years ago, the Blues, the Bruins, all of those teams do a really good job at finding those McEwen types of guys who are quick, who are younger, quicker, can bring the physicality, but are not a minus in their own end, who they use for a couple seasons, who do very well, and then they shuffle them out for somebody younger who can do that same thing. They never give them like that big ticket that's going to run out the door. And then some teams run into the issue of like Chicago and I guess Pittsburgh to a degree now, where they maybe get too attached to that player and they bring them in and things go wrong because suddenly they're using them with a much bigger expectation and responsibility in mind. So hopefully I think McEwen will find his footing on that third line alongside Gaudette and probably Roussel. I imagine would be that guy lining up on the left. But you never know. I think it's going to give them time. I think with Chatfield, he's already kind of looking on the outside in. I think there are guys ahead of him on that depth chart like Jack Rathbone and Olli Levy and, of course, Jordy Ben. So I'm not as concerned with how things go with Chatfield because I think he's much farther down that list. Yeah. But it would be nice to see. It would be nice to see guys punch above their weight because you want to see that intensity. You want to see players show, hey, I can, you want me for the third, but I'm going to play like I belong in the first. That you want to see that level of confidence and belief in themselves that they can play to a higher degree, to a higher level of competition than they're maybe expected to.
Absolutely. Like, especially like bringing it back to McEwen, like he had like a phenomenal return to play camp where he had basically given the coaching staff like no other option. It was like you had to play McEwen. Like the guy is playing his heart out in these scrimmages in this camp. He's working his ass off. Like you have to make space for him. And that's probably where some of the surprises at this camp right now is that he hasn't really lived up to that same kind of hype or expectation that he set for himself during that return to play camp. But like you said, the things that he does bring, like he just can't really do that right now. It'll be more interesting later, like on the Saturday scrimmage or like the Sunday scrimmage, if they have one then too, is if like he can, put in some points that aren't empty netters, at least flash some skill, like, and, kind of prove himself that way. But he's got like some other competition. Like there's this kid, Mark Michaelis, that I'm pretty sure no one in the media of Vancouver knows what he looks like.
I didn't know what he looked like until
I have no idea what he looks like.
Up.
If you told me he was like 9 feet tall and had like a centaur body, I'd be like, yeah, okay. I don't know what he looks like, so sure. That sounds about
he might
right.
be. I don't know if that's going to help him skating, but sure. If that's what you think works.
That's why he's so fast. He's
Centaur.
got 4 legs.
He's got 4 legs. He runs like a champ.
Yeah, he runs great. But yeah, I spoke with some of the media guys about him in particular, and some of the people were pretty surprised, or not surprised, but they were told that the Canucks camp is actually really high on Michaelis. He'd been on their watch list for like quite some time, apparently. So the fact that Michaelis has come into camp and like had like a great scrimmage and throughout this entire week has pretty much been like kind of putting up the flag, like, hey, I'm not just an AHL guy that's going to be your depth piece, but I might be a great taxi squad option. Like I'm on the older side of my development curve. So what you see might be what you get, but I'm kind of proving that I can play or hang with the best of the best on this training camp. So that's actually pretty exciting. Like that's why I love training camp, is like you get these surprise stories where guys come out of nowhere. Like, as you were saying, like Antoine Roussel is kind of cinched up like a 3rd line or a 4th line spot. And I think after last season and the playoffs, even most people had kind of written him off because of like his mobility issues. And here he is basically saying, yeah, you can't have a 3rd or 4th line without me. Like I'm fine with my role and I'm going to make sure you can't take me off of it. And that's great. I love that. I'm totally cool with like a Michaelis doing the exact same. If other guys don't want to show up or play above, expectations and try and cinch like a spot in a roster that like we're never going to see this kind of thing again. There's never going to be knock on wood, that COVID is done by the end of this, like 2021.
Absolutely.
Like fingers crossed, because I'm fucking done with it.
Yes.
But like you're never going to have a taxi squad again. So if you're one of these prospects that's on like say you got 1 year left or 2 years left, wouldn't you be like putting in that extra work to try and be like, I'm better than Louis Eriksson no matter what. I'm better than Sven Berchi. I'm like, we'll get into those guys later, but now is the time basically to seize an opportunity in a world, a taxi squad world that we're never going to see again. Like Jordy Ben, like we can roll it back to him. He's pretty much been in the doghouse for Travis Green for the last season. He is on his second year of his deal. We all know that he's better on his offside than he is on his right, but that's pretty much where he's been saddled for most of camp. And instead of like trying to fight to prove to the team like, hey, you don't need Travis Hamonic, you have me, he's just kind of playing like, I'm fine with where I ended up last season. I'm fine being a call-up basically from the press box. And that's kind of mind-blowing to me. Like, this is the camp to prove yourself. Like Jalen Chatfield, like the guy can't score for shit at the AHL level. he like, I know, like
he's defensive. He's a defensive effort. He's a defensive guy.
He's a defensive guy. He has some risky plays, but like you're not bringing him up for like, the offense, right? Like he's basically like at his peak elite best, he is replacing what Oscar Fantenberg brought, but Oscar Fantenberg could score at the NHL level. I have no idea if if it's like a Jim Benning, the way he talks about Oli Uelevi and how his game is better at the AHL or at the NHL than the AHL. I can't imagine that. Like all of a sudden his shot is just better or his offensive instincts are better. But for all of his intangibles that this organization loves, like they have a clear mold of like the compete level, the battle level, the size, the grit. Like they have a mold of what they want in their bottom six prospects and their bottom pairing defenseman guys. That's why they got someone like Myers, like a big body who, can, eat the hard minutes. That's what they want.
Oh boy. Yeah.
So,
I mean, you hope that you could see a guy break in like you want to see the smaller guys hopefully maybe make a bit of an impact, because right now there's a lot of bigger guys here. Like Nate Schmidt's a pretty big guy, Edler obviously, Hamonic, Ben, Myers, they're all hard minutes guys. Rathbone and Uelevi, hope you can see come in and maybe make an effort. Like Rathbone's looked pretty decent. His foot speed's been up there. I would love to see.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say he has the foot speed. He clearly has like all the raw like abilities that will translate to an NHL defenseman, but he's still like super young. So him going to the AHL and playing like a full season, totally fine. But it's great that he has like the foot speed and like all these other things that you can't really teach into a defenseman like at this point in their development. Yeah,
but like you said, this is a year where there's no the taxi squad. There's not going to be a taxi squad like this ever again. Rathbone represents the type of guy that could really jump into games. Particularly, I was a little bit harsh on Ottawa in the last episode, but you're going to get a lot of opportunities against a last place team here, or a team that was a bona fide team that's not going to be very good. You're going to see, as well as some teams that are a little bit on the, you're not sure what you're playing against. This is, and a lot of games very quick in a short schedule. There's going to be a lot more opportunities to throw guys into games that you might not have. As much as Travis Green likes his veterans, I think you're going to see. I think you're going to see teams rotate those taxi squad players in a little bit more than you would in a normal year.
At least the guys that don't have or that are waiver protected, right? Like that's the big key. But like those kinds of guys, like they're gonna get games. Like Brogan Rafferty, no waivers required. Like if they can get him into game 2 in a back-to-back, the third game in 4 days against Montreal, why not? Like what do you have to lose? Or sorry, not even Montreal, Ottawa. Like what do you really have to lose? It's Ottawa.
Throw him in, see how it goes. Rath, especially because you're going to have those bigger, older guys who might need an extra maintenance day off or something. And with the exception of like say a Quinn Hughes or a Nate Schmidt, the rest of those guys, you don't need to play them necessarily 56 nights, 56 games. You could easily scale it back just a tiny bit and be like, okay, we're going to give you tonight to rest up and not go out and like not overexert the players, the older guys. Throw in a Rathbone, throw in a Uelevi, throw in a Mark Michaelis on the forward line. You can throw these guys and see what sticks, and you might find by the time playoffs rolls around, if the Canucks are in that position to make the playoffs, you could maybe have a very different looking team that you go into the real playoff grind with, and have your set when you get to that set lineup.
Yeah, like especially. Like you have all these guys like that are pretty mainstay veterans like Sutter or like Beagle, like guys that are like routinely injured because they play such tough defensive minutes and they penalty kill all the time,
throwing their body out in front of shot blocks and everything.
Yeah, like Uelevi, like that guy has zero regard for the health and safety of his body in the AHL level or blocking shots. Like he's gonna.
And we mean that in a nice way.
Yeah. I know.
Not an A. Not an A. He never takes care of himself.
Yeah. Oli is a big fan of the podcast. He's a patron guy. He knows we love him. Big shouts to OJ48. But yeah, like this is going to be a really tough season just because of how condensed the schedule is and like how like competitive games are going to be. Like so much is on the line every single night. That if there are like there's going to be opportunities to rest guys with this taxi squad option, that we should like reasonably see young players slid into like the bottom 6, slid into the bottom pairing. Like there's going to be no other opportunity for the Canucks to get like meaningful pro experience for these guys to see what they can do. Like bring up Cole Lind, even if he's not Niels Hoglander, like he's giving you more offense than Zach McEwen or Louis Eriksson at this point. So get him in a game. Why not?
And you hope,
throw him out there against Ottawa. Like, who cares?
Why not? And you hope Jordy Ben maybe shows up from time to time and maybe shows a little bit more and is able to kind of prove that he belongs in that top 6 a little bit more as we go.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really done anything this entire camp, but speaking of Jordy Ben, did you watch that whole thing with
I haven't yet. Maybe like
it's funny.
I would say we should watch it through the thing here. If we could figure that out or not get copyright like flagged.
I feel like we'd probably let's try to avoid getting DMCA takedowns on our content just yet. Maybe like maybe
once
like when we have some cred, some clout where people can't cancel them. So but just like as a summary, Schmidt had like more energy than like even as a viewer I was ready to take. Like I watched
I have seen that
I was exhausted like watching like the full 4 minutes or whatever it was. Like it's a lot to take.
Yeah. We don't have optional skate tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I was like, that's a bold move. I respect it. Like asking a brand new coach if you can like do an optional, that's great.
I love the character from him, and I mean it was smart of him to check with the other teammates and be like, hey, do you think he'll get a kick out of that, or will he just hate me? Like, I mean it would have been it could have been a lot worse if he just went in like Cole was just like, I'm sure this guy will get it, me, right? You never know. Like if you go to say like, I don't know, John Tortorella with that, he might be a little less impressed or less funny. You're cut, but we're paying him $6 million. Cut.
Yeah, he goes to the GM's, he goes to Jarmo Kekalainen's office immediately, and he's just like, "Get rid of him.
Out.
I don't care." Out. But some of the other highlights of like the video is like a lot of the time it's him on the bench, and Jordy Ben for whatever reason is always like next to him. I don't even think they were on a pair. It was him and Edler, but like he was just always sandwiched between like Schmidt and Edler, and then Ben's in the center, and Schmidt is just yapping the entire time to Edler, and he's like screaming, like basically like screaming around Ben, just hey, and Ben is just sitting there like he's like completely stone faced, and like he looks so irritated, like he's just like, I can't believe I'm not gonna make the roster again this year.
Poor Jordy, like just yelling like the guy next to you's got it all sewn up. It's like that one. It's like that one A+ student in your class who won't stop asking the teacher questions. Yeah. And you're just sitting there with your C or your D, just like, oh, I just want class to go faster. Please.
I had that happen to me.
Stop asking questions.
I had that happen to me back in BCIT. There was like a really smart kid, and he got like an A- or like a 93 out of 100. And like I got like 68 or something. And he's like going to the teacher. He's at the front of the class, and there's like 15 minutes left. And he's just like, oh, no. How could you give me this grade? and I was choked because like I'm not the smartest dude at like that kind of stuff. It's so
right. I'm so, not like
I laughed.
School is not my thing.
Yeah, I laughed, and I was like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, some of us really fucking try hard, okay? Like, you'll be fine with your A grade. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, my mom took courses while I was in college for like a wine studies program or something, because Northern California, of course. And she'd come home and she'd be like, oh, I only got like a 96 on my recent test or something. And of course, I am very much the C's get degrees approach to school, because sitting still and listening to instructions for long periods of time is just not something I mix well. ADHD does not mix well with school. Yeah. And I'm just like, oh, poor you. It's so hard. Your life is so difficult.
Yeah, no kidding.
You just want to, you get a B or in like a class or a test or something. You're just like, yes, this is winning right here. And then some people just so like sad about their like low A. But I guess in a way that's kind of admirable, in the sense of like must be great to be able to hold yourself to that kind of highest standard, which is kind of Which is what these players should be holding themselves to at this point. The kind of thing that they should be that we should be looking to see from them, especially the guys trying to fight for that last spot on the team.
I was going to say that's a great segue into where we discuss a couple of the players. Is that some of these players are completely fine with their A. So Nate Schmidt, always getting A's, kind of complains a bit when he gets a 92 out of 100. And then you have your Jordy Benz and your Sven Berchis, who, they're C plus B. They could probably push for an A, but right now, based on camp, they're completely content with their B for some reason, which is really bizarre. I don't get that.
Yeah. You're on the outside and you got to fight for it. I mean, again, we talked about it on the last episode that Berchi, he might be done with this organization to a certain extent. And I can't say I really blame him in that regard, just especially the way that everything kind of went, but down the stretch with them and how he was ready to move on and everything. I can't say I blame him in that regard. Jordy Ben, you want to see a little bit more from. He's got because there are definitely younger guys pushing for his spot on the team for sure. It's not like with Berchi where he's already kind of coming in on the outside. Ben could have a spot on this team tomorrow if he wanted it. Yeah. So, but especially because Travis Green likes his veterans, he likes the older guys. He will pick them generally over the younger commodity unless he needs to.
Yeah.
If we're not seeing it from him, that's not great, but it might be bode well for the younger guys like a Jack Rathbone or a Brogan Rafferty, that sort of any one of those guys who, I mean, if given the opportunity, I think will make a bigger impact than Jordy Ben. But you still want to see it. You still want to see him be able to get to that level and not be so content with being a seventh or an eighth option.
Right, because at this point too, the right side is pretty short up with Hamonic signed. Like you have Hamonic, you have Myers, and you're just not gonna do yourself any favors if you're content with your B plus to be a seventh or eighth position when you have younger dudes like he's not that great offensively, but if Jalen Chatfield's pushing you out of the door to be that seventh, eighth guy, or Brogan Rafferty's getting power play too, you're in huge trouble. And
right.
So I don't know why you wouldn't be just battling and going the extra mile for a coach that, clearly has his issues with the way you play or whatever. They signed him to a 2-year deal knowing that he's better on his offside. And if you can't impress your coach in that first year, you're already up against it. So it's not great or not boding well if you're not even getting noticed at camp by all these media guys who are laser focused on this restart to camp. That's pretty huge. I
will say Ben's, I don't think he's going to Utica, so that's no. I feel like that's totally out of the question. But at least to say things aren't going well for you, maybe play for someone else to pick you up. Another team might be interested.
For sure.
If you can play your way into that helps a lot. That helps the team find you a place that will work better. I don't think any trade request has been made or anything. So no. I'm not presenting that as what he wants. I'm sure he wants to make this team, and I'm sure he wants to play. Yeah. But you can't be getting pushed out by the third or fourth young guy on the team because when push comes to shove, they're the guys who are going to be here who are going to be here next season most likely, regardless of what happens this year. Yeah. And you want to play for that. You have to play for your next contract. You're coming up on that.
Yeah, for sure. And other guys that are playing for their contract, I know we've kind of harped on him a bit, but Sven Berchi, he's one of those guys too. He probably did have if there was ever an opportunity for him to make it back, it would be via this taxi squad. And I think we talked about it in the last episode, but he probably would get a taxi squad option just because of his experience, his veteran status and all that. But at this point, you have Mark Michaelis and Will Lockwood, who he should spend the entire season in the AHL. But when those two are getting more noticed and doing more at camp and are actually scoring goals and you're just whiffing over the net, I listened to that whole thing and I think he had 4 or 5 calls where it was here's Berchi on the doorstep, and he sails it over the net. like in a camp this important for you to like, maybe prolong your career after the Canucks. It's not a great look. It's not great for him. It's great that the Canucks, found money in Mark Michaelis as this like NCAA player who's just like suddenly kind of lighting up camp.
Do you feel like he has a shot to make it here? Because I mean, I assumed Mark Michaelis was going AHL regardless, but it's the way you're talking about him, and again, you're somebody who watched that scrimmage more than I did, and I guess this is based on some of the people that you've talked to as well.
Yeah, so some of the people that I talked to had said that Michaelis apparently was like a player that the Canucks have been watching for like years, like since he like went to the NCAA basically, and the fact that like he's knocking on the door, like it is kind of like he might be a taxi squad guy because like the way he's just showing like his composure and like his two-way game and like his skates aren't bad either. And the fact that he's like an older player too. So they're not dealing with like a 20-year-old that's like really inexperienced with the pro game. Like he's an 25. Older prospect. Yeah. So like, it's kind of like a now or never thing. So if now he's looking good at training camps, then he's like a perfectly fine taxi squad option because you get him games now or you don't basically.
Yeah, why not? Like, why not this is the kind of season where it's going to be such a grind that you're almost going to be more incentivized to try new players out in different situations mid-season, especially because there's no preseason. So it's not like you would have that kind of opportunity to maybe give them these kinds of games. But there's a lot of back-to-backs going forward, and a lot of games are just such a tight schedule that why not? If you see Mark Michaelis playing like he deserves an opportunity to come up and actually show something at the NHL level, go for it. Let's see what he can do. Let's see what he brings to the table. Obviously, it's a little bit difficult because obviously you still have to navigate all the cap stuff and whatnot.
Yeah.
Not that obviously they can't afford to bring him up, just of who they would have to take out of this, who they'd be taking out to make that fit. But I don't see why they couldn't at least keep him up to start the year, give him a shot against a couple of the teams. Like I think they have Ottawa pretty quick out of the gate. I mean, I feel like I'm dunking way too hard on the Senators than they deserve. I know they're bad.
Have you seen their defensive core? Oh my god!
Oh yeah, Eric Goodbranson is playing with Thomas Chabot. Oh, sorry, assistant captain Eric Goodbranson.
Yeah. His quote the other day is so funny. Where he's like, Ottawa. Yeah, hasn't been good enough here. It's like, you just got there. Like, you don't know anything. You don't know what the struggles have been. So it's kind of funny. Like, he's talking as if, like, this season Ottawa. So,
guys, I know what's wrong here.
Yeah.
There was not enough of me here, guys. We're gonna figure this out.
That's a good way to endear yourself to your teammates, is just immediately shit-talking how bad they played. And like you're Brady.
Although to be fair, the Senators were probably like, yeah, we know. Like,
yeah, for sure.
You don't have to be too hard on us.
If you're like Brady Tkachuk, who is like lighting the lamp every single game, and he's like, hey man, like I've been trying. Like, who the fuck are you? Like, come on, give me a break.
Yeah, I met Thomas Chabot. Really nice guy. He's fun. He's like a big player for them. Like, you're coming in as like, all right, you've been leading a garbage team, man. I'm your defensive partner, and you've been leading a garbage team. Like, what did I do? Like, I'm doing my best.
So when he throws his hand on his shoulder, he's like, it's when Eric throws his hand on his shoulder, and he's just like, hey, buddy, you got to carry me for the whole season. And I'll tell you, if we're playing better than last year. And Tom Chabot's just like,
to be fair, Goodbranson can easily you can lose yourself in his eyes. That guy's like, super handsome face. You can get places on that handsome face.
I was devastated to find out he's a year younger than me. I have never felt.
Is he really?
He's 29. I think he's like 29. I'm 30.
I honestly thought you were still late 20s. Holy,
that's amazing.
New information to me. That's new information to me.
I'm gonna quit this podcast right now because my ego's never been higher. That's somebody I was younger.
That should just be your quote on like your Twitter bio. I thought, like, think
appeared late 20s when he was a 30-year-old loser.
Lachlan Irvin, right there. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say I'm looking at their schedule right now, and they start off with back-to-backs in Edmonton, and then it's 2 in 3 games against Calgary, and then 3 games in 4 nights against Montreal, and 3 in 5 nights against Ottawa.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
start.
I assumed they were coming. I mean, in a league, okay, in a season where you're only playing 6 teams, obviously they were going to come up pretty quickly.
Yes,
but I mean, I definitely look at those Ottawa games with the irreverence of they look like preseason games of let's try whatever and see what happens.
Yeah.
Because you should win if you're playing at your best. But I mean, I shouldn't be so hard on that, especially because, every game matters so much at this level. But try some stuff. You're going to have the opportunities to try some things. And there's going to be, in some cases, that's going to be a necessity. Sometimes it's just going to be because why not? Let's see what Michaelis can do when against like actual NHL competition. Because no matter how many times, you try and replicate it in like scrimmages at a team event, you're never going to get to that level. You're never going to get that level of competition because what are you going to do? You don't want to end up like Cody CC, who I believe put Crosby out of a scrimmage after hitting him. He left. Yeah, he left to go to the locker room and didn't come back, I believe. Jeez. That was Cody CC's initial introduction to the Penguins. So, like, you don't want to see that happen, right? So you're never and most players will let up even just that fraction of a bit because they're not going to go out and injure somebody or accidentally make a play that could get someone in trouble. So until you get into NHL competition against a proper opponents, you're never going to be able to replicate that. So let's see what they can do when they're given the opportunities. Yeah,
why not? On that note, we can turn our attention to some news from capfriendly.com in their Twitter. They let everybody know that the deadline for waivers was Monday at noon. So I'm actually kind of shocked. Like, I guess because my brain is completely scrambled over like time, the passage of time. Like, I couldn't believe that's like in 2 days or 3 days. And then like just the league starting its season in like less than 5 is just blowing my brain. The Canucks like find themselves in a position now where they have to make some serious cuts in the next like 48 hours. So they have, I'm pretty sure they're scrimmaging tonight.
This will be the last one with a full group.
Yeah. So pretty much by Sunday, I'm assuming we're going to start hearing, like, obviously there's some pretty obvious guys that are going to get cut, like, Josh Taves and Mitch Elliott and the Gadjeviches of the world.
And most of those guys are at waiver risk. So like they're going to clear.
There's no problem. There's no real waiver until Monday, probably.
There's no guy in that younger group who is a serious, like, at least in terms of the ones that can't clear a waiver, that have to go through waivers. There's no one in that group that like stands out as, oh, this person could get claimed by a lot of other teams. So you don't have to really worry about that going on. I guess it mostly comes down to the guys who are a little bit more on the more expensive side. I mean, obviously Bearcheek cleared last year, so they're not worried about that. And I don't even know what Bearcheek's cap hit is right now. It's okay. It's still 3. It's still 3.3 million.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think I know where we're going here, which is, what do you do with Louis Eriksson? What are you going to do here? Do you send him down, him and his $6 million price tag down, if he's not playing at the level that he should? Which right now, it's not there. It's he's Louis. He's being Louis. I mean, I want to see them show the backbone there a little bit and be like, yes, we're gonna cut this guy, because hey, even if say he doesn't pass the waivers, holy crap, $6 million just came out of your cap for this year. That's a great help, and for next year, for that matter.
You could use the $1 million of space by him being on your. Actually, what is it? I'm not sure what his minor's salary is, but at the very least, you're making
clearing it off the cap.
$1 million of cap space is given to you, so that's enough for like a third string goalie if you wanted it, or if you want to use
it. Doesn't because it doesn't clear the
money.
full.
Yeah,
it doesn't because it doesn't clear the full value.
I think they increased it so it's like 1.075 of whatever the total value is goes to your cap relief.
His minor salary is $4 million.
So yeah, if he's on the taxi squad, because they go by, I think, your minor's salary as the cap hit, so you get some relief there too, I'm pretty sure. But I mean, look with Berchi, like they sent him down to the AHL and he fucking hated it, but the guy like changed his attitude around and was like, you know what, I can try and teach the young kids a thing or two, and then I'll try and like, light up the league, and then at the very least maybe increase my trade value or whatever. So like, you never know.
And it immediately increases your trade value just if you can get sent down, if you're already in the minors. Because
yeah, like
that's always one of the worries, is that, oh, we kind of like this player, but we don't love him we don't necessarily need to bring him up to the NHL right this minute. So so let's see if he can clear waivers and get through, sort of thing. Because that makes it more of an asset that's potentially tradable, because you can say, well, you don't have to worry about losing him over waivers or anything like that sort. You can save him for when you need him.
Yeah, keep him in your AHL squad or whatever.
Exactly. It's obviously more complicated this year because of everything with COVID and how they're going to get to travel there and everything and what goes on there. But they've always been so, I don't want to say stubborn with Louis Eriksson, but it has felt at times like they're trying so hard to fit the square peg into the round hole, and it's just not working. He does still provide help in his own end. He's decent. He's decent in his own end of the ice.
And he's like an elite penalty killer, so yeah.
It really does just come down to that cap hit at the end of the day. Yeah. So many issues just come back to the cap numbers, right? Like if Louis Eriksson was only making even $2 million, that's still too much. That's still too much, which would be which would be what they'd be getting back from this if they dropped him. $2 million for that kind of effort, it's still probably a little high, but it's
you're
way
getting
more
significant
palatable.
Utility, yeah.
Right, and it's suddenly the cost to value ratio is just that much better. Right now, it's just so bad because of how much he costs year to year, and more importantly, what is he costing the team by taking up that valuable cap space?
Yeah, for sure. And at a certain point too, like his age is going to kind of hit, and that utility that he does provide as like a defensive player who can penalty kill and whatever, it's going to like just evaporate. And at that point, if he can't skate and he can't defend, then you just have the cap hit, like you said. So
I mean,
it depends.
There's only 2 more this year, and next year is the last one. Which, holy cow, time has flied.
Yeah, I was going to say that was a long 6 years.
What were you doing when, and I'm sure we'll revisit this next summer, where were you when Louis Eriksson signed his contract? Okay, so you're 30 now, you would have been 24.
Yeah.
You were a year older than I am now. I'm 23, going on 24 in June. So.
Oh, okay. Oh my God! I've never felt so old in my life.
I feel old looking at the players now. It's like this guy was like in the World Juniors this year.
Yeah.
We have to talk about the World Juniors too? They're like, this guy was born in 2003, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, what year did you say?
Brad Lambert. He's like born in like 2004 or whatever, and I'm just like, that's cool. Started high school at that age.
This kid doesn't even remember the NHL, the big lockout, like the great lockout of 2004. He was 1. I remember that year like so vividly.
Yeah.
And there being no hockey on, and I was only like 6, but that's still like a huge jump to go from never lived in an era where Sidney Crosby wasn't on the Penguins or Ovi wasn't on the Caps. Yeah. That's crazy.
Give it that way.
Yeah, there's like we could do whole episodes on that, frankly.
We might have to do an episode where it's just like comparing how like young some players are and what they've lived through and what they haven't lived through, and just make ourselves feel like crap. That sounds pretty good, actually, and fun. Yeah, we should do that.
Yes, we could do that with Louis Eriksson when his contract finally ends, and be like, this was the most popular song when Louis Eriksson, the week Louis Eriksson signed, and the most popular, the movie at the box office was so and so.
Oh, jeez.
It would have been a good summer movie. It would have
Except-
been one of those big summer blockbuster hits.
I don't know if you've
Probably.
done this, but like
Ant-Man?
I see like movies or whatever and like their release dates, and I'm like, no, that came out like the other year. There's no way that Guardians of the Galaxy came out
Yes.
23 or whatever, or 24. Like that.
The
blows
Marvel
my
movies
brain.
have just breezed by. Like
Yeah.
they have just like, what do you mean Iron Man came out in
Yeah.
2008?
When I was 18, like, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
I remember being in the theaters when the trailer came out. Like,
Wow.
come on.
I think the first Marvel movie I saw in theaters was Iron Man 2. I didn't see the first two.
You poor soul.
I mean, I thought it was cool enough that I watched all the other movies. I actually
Yeah,
liked Iron Man 2. It wasn't that bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. We're way way
I was gonna
off
say,
topic.
let's roll.
We have
it
to save
back
the
here.
Marvel stuff for Patreon. That's where the
that's
Marvel
true.
stuff goes.
That's what the people pay for. So
Yes, exactly.
we'll go back to the camp and the cap friendly cuts or whatever. So we'll just say, I don't know.
Erickson's going.
Yeah,
I think he's going. I think it's the smart move. I think it's the right move to show that you're willing to make sacrifices for better young players, which even still feels like a problem for this management group, where it seems like maybe those players aren't necessarily blowing the world away at camp or something, but you look and you see the potential of, well, this guy could, like, you could see something clicking if you gave them the ice time and you gave them the opportunity, but they don't get it because someone's clogging up that spot, usually a Louis Eriksson or a bottom six guy, just because they're using those bottom two lines so differently. I feel like but I feel like this is the year where they'll be more comfortable going, well, we only have this much time. We're going to bring in somebody who we think is young, who's going to keep up with this younger division, this younger crop of guys, and give them the opportunity to shine at this level before we think about bringing back a Louis Eriksson or a Sven Berchi, or who else did I have kind of on the outside looking in? I guess it was just those two, but then also
those are the two standouts for sure.
Right. I feel like Zach McEwen's going to have a spot made for him, though, which is nice. I think he's... Yeah,
they obviously... There's, like, intangibles that you can kind of recognize in, like, Zach McEwen or, like, Chatfield as well, where you're just like, I see what a coach would see in him, like, the big body who hits and all that, and they would, like, put that on a higher pedestal than, say, like, the hockey IQ and the offense that, like, a Cole Lind would bring. So they obviously have, like, a mold of what they're trying to build. It's just like, will this season be the year where they stop being safe with their roster picks, or do they take that next level and go, all right, we're tired of being safe. We need to make some bold decisions and see what all of these draft picks and prospects that we've accumulated, what they can do at the NHL level. Why not make it this year? Like, your core is in its last years of its ELCs. You might as well see what Cole Lind can do. Just one game in the top six with Pettersson or with Horvat. Why not? You're playing the Senators 9 times in a season. The chances are, even if you play Lind in one of those games, you're going to win it. Like, there's no real inherent risk unless they're not trusting their goaltending duo whatsoever, which is like a huge asterisk.
I think that and all the best teams of the last few years, with maybe the exception of like a Tampa Bay, for example, who more so has traded their way into like their bottom groups and everything, like their younger, like they're into their depth signings, their depth guys. A lot of those came from other teams, but like St. Louis and Boston is a really good example, as much as I hate to say. Those teams have done a very good job at using younger guys in those lower roles, even if they're more offensively inclined. Being like, okay, maybe they're not going to, we're going to play them in a role where it's less minutes and a little bit more defensive responsibility, but we could maybe still find something here. And they'll contribute and put more pucks in the net. The Canucks have been very stubborn about kind of sticking to this, our top two lines score, our bottom two lines defend sort of mentality, which is why I really hope McEwen finds his way onto that third line, because I think he's one of those guys who can do both very well. And he's one of those guys that I look at as he's not a game breaker, obviously. He is the type of players that win you championships are having guys like those Zach McEwens, those guys who are not necessarily who are a little more replaceable to a degree, but but when they're there and for that window of time, they're putting up points and they're contributing and they're not a minus when they're on the ice.
You need the blue chip guys for sure. Like you need the blue chip prospects that are like on cheap tickets who can not get scored on and contribute when they can. That's why like the Tampa Bay model is so good, because they have their top lines doing penalty killing, power play, 5v5, and then their bottom six is just trusted to like also penalty kill, but do everything as well. It's so evenly distributed that they just like put their youth in like these positions to do whatever it takes to win, because their top six, they're like, we can get them to penalty kill, we can get them to do power play whenever we want. So let's pair, Kucherov with Mitchell Stevens in the one game that Mitchell Stevens gets called up, and hopefully it works. If not, whatever. We still have Nikita Kucherov.
Yeah, and most importantly, they know when to walk away from those players. They know that okay, we're not going to give this guy just because we won a championship or found success with this guy. We're not gonna break the bank to keep him around and keep the whole gang together. To
be fair, they also broke the bank like years ago when they signed everyone to their $9 million deals and $11 million deals.
Exactly. Yeah. But
they broke the bank on the right players, right?
Yes, that's what's important. And that's what it takes. Is if you can keep that top group intact, that core group intact, just keep replacing those guys on the third and fourth lines with younger guys who can still fill that same kind of role. You can keep success going for a decent amount of time. And then that's why a lot of these teams have stuck at the top for so long, and to a degree, almost why the Canucks didn't as long when they were at their peak to a level.
Yeah. Well, since we've covered most of the cap friendly and the waivers and all that, let's get into some of the crazier shit that dropped today. And we spoke before we started recording. I decided to take the reins on hosting tonight's episode. And I checked Twitter in the morning before work just to see if there's anything I should include in the the recap. And boy, was there ever some news. We had
too much of it.
All of the news.
We
had the senior staff writer for the Dallas Stars, Mike Heika, I believe I'm saying that right, reported an outbreak that was affecting the Dallas Stars, and they would be canceling their practice. And then not 15 minutes later, the Columbus Blue Jackets PR department just straight up said, we have a COVID-19 concern. We are pulling a bunch of players from practice as a precaution. And then later in the day, we had the NHL straight up saying there's a COVID-19 outbreak on the teams, and games are going to be pushed back to the 19th of January. And in case you guys don't look at your calendars as much, that is 11
Jackets as well. The Jackets got pushed back as well.
I believe they did. I would have to double check, but for sure, the NHL had their little PR release saying yep, by the way, Dallas Stars had an outbreak and need to be pushed back to the 19th. And that's not looking too hot for the teams in the South. Not that I'm, projecting a bias that, the American teams are at a disadvantage for preventing their teams from getting COVID, but this is pretty scary.
It's very scary.
We are so close to the restart of the NHL season, and we are now getting teams training camps disrupted, which they need more than ever in the absent. Wow. Why can't I talk?
It happens. This is what hosting does.
Yeah. Without exhibition games, teams need training camps more than ever. And now you have two teams that are in pretty stacked divisions, going in dry.
So I'll start by saying this. I am glad, I'm just, at this point in time, I'm glad to see the NHL taking this seriously. At the very least. I will say that, like, this year, because of everything with COVID and we're staying at home, I'm not doing as much, I'm not going out and doing as many things I normally would, just as an example, like, I don't go to the movies anymore. I'm not going out to eat or that sort of stuff like I would normally be doing in a regular year. So I ended up watching a good amount of football this year, which I never do. I never watch football. Just watching the way the NFL handled their COVID stuff, where they're just like, who cares? We're just gonna let them play. Like those guys will go back to the hotel and quarantine, but the rest of you can play because that's how COVID works. That's how sicknesses work. Once you put them in the door, once you lock the door on the other guys, no one else is gonna get sick. And I've been spending a lot of time just watching how the NFL just completely botched the way that they handled their cases, and basically I would say feigned any sort of concern about their players' health and safety. It seemed very quickly that they do not give a shit as long as they get their games. So I was worried that the NHL would go in a similar direction. And I mean, they still could, depending on what happens, say if you get a COVID outbreak mid-season. But right now, the fact that they're at least saying, okay, you're not going to play. We're going to hold your games until everybody is feeling better and healthy and there's no worry about it. That's good. Like, I want to see that level of concern and that level of understanding that this is not something to kid around about. You better be making sure your players, your players' safety is your top priority and concern, which is something that the NHL to a level has not done well at points in their in their history. I mean, you just go back to all the stuff of like the concussion stuff and everything else, and there's like the whole painkillers thing that came out during the playoffs. Those things are obviously bad, but COVID, you see that very obvious understanding of do not kid around with this because you will kill people if you don't. So I'm glad to see that they're taking it so seriously and actually making sure that those players get the time and rest and not just trying to rush them back to the ice or anything.
Right. I'm in the same boat as you. Like, this could have been handled so much like worse. Like in maybe like last March or something, like you could have definitely seen them be like, oh, we're worried about said player, but we're going to go through with today's game, right? Like, it's almost a good thing this happened in camp where they can kind of like monitor it a lot better. And obviously they're taking it pretty seriously. Just so like our audience knows, I wanted to go over like the COVID protocols that they've actually had in their return to play notes.
I don't think I know all these by heart either, so this is great to.
Yeah, it's pretty. There's some more complicated dialogue, but they fortunately like kind of abbreviate it for us plebs, so I really appreciate that. Shout out to the NHL legalese department. Nice. So if a player tests positive with symptoms, they have to isolate until approved for return by the team physicians. If a player tests positive without symptoms, though, they are essentially on IR for the next 4 days while they await 3 consecutive negative tests in a row while isolating. So there's other specifics like players are prohibited from carpooling. There's no road trip roommates, and teams are like obligated to rent 2 hotel rooms in case there's a positive COVID test on the road. Players aren't even allowed to go to restaurants, bars, clubs. That's pretty funny that they had to put that in there, but it's, necessary.
Yeah, if you don't sometimes if you don't explicitly say it, they'll be like, hey, you didn't say we couldn't do that. So yeah. Not that they could anyway in most of these places, not that they really could.
No. The one thing I did notice in like some of the phrasing of this is that they don't actually specify like any punishments if people go to restaurants or bars, which is kind of like you'd think there'd be something like, oh, if players caught going to a restaurant or bar while on the road, like they would be suspended for a game or 3 games or 4 days worth of games, basically, right?
That is a little concerning because you almost need the public to know about that stuff. So there's the accountability aspect to it, because otherwise, again, like we might not know. They could have easily done all these things or whatever, and be like, oh, we've handled it internally, sort of thing. But that could be nothing. Like internally it could be nothing. So hopefully they're taking it seriously enough, and then hopefully we'll see. Well, hopefully we don't have to see what that punishment is when the season's going forward. Hopefully we don't need to worry about it ever. But if something comes up, you want to know that there's going to be the accountability is going to be held there, because again, that's what really looked bad about everything going on with the NFL, as well as to a smaller extent the MLB when what was it, that Dodger came out and literally left quarantine after testing positive for COVID to celebrate with his teammates. It's like nobody was going to stop him, but you should have stopped him.
Yes.
What do you mean no one was going to stop him? Yes, you should have. He's sick.
Yeah, you pulled him off. But okay, so I'll get into this a little bit. So because it's like kind of like a head scratcher, and it has to do with the NHL's like rules on COVID that I just listed, is that it comes down to this team physician's discretion to approve of a player's return while also acting as a liaison to local infectious diseases persons. And I bring this up because we had that big giant story on painkiller abuse by hockey players. Like Ryan Kessler developed colitis from like years of sustained abuse of painkillers. And a lot of the complaints drawn in that documentary were at the team physicians of the league, whose interests are better served to ownerships and management groups than they are necessarily to the players themselves, because team physicians obviously are get paid on the number of games that players play healthy. I'm pretty sure that was like a big issue, is like they were basically doping up players. Take painkillers. Don't worry about like the fine print. We need you back. Like, it's a horrible, horrible documentary in the sense of just like the lack of care and lack of information that was given to them. So a part of me sees the way they handled today and the PR that they put out, basically saying like there's a COVID outbreak, because in their own protocols, they said they didn't have to name anyone that tested positive, and they didn't have to actually say anything during training camps. But they kind of did. The Columbus Blue Jackets PR team basically said, we're isolating all of these players. They didn't have to do that.
I couldn't find that tweet, which is interesting.
It might have gotten deleted.
I wouldn't be surprised if the league told them to delete it.
Right, because I thought that was bizarre that the Jackets PR department was like, here's all these players that are withheld from training camp today, while also reading these protocols saying, yeah, you don't have to name anyone during training camp. We'll handle it. So a part of me is like, great, they're going above and beyond. And then the pessimist, miserable, depressing side of me is like, I don't trust the team physicians to follow COVID protocols. Like,
oh yeah, it was Aaron Portzline who tweeted it out.
Okay, perfect. So a part of me is like, if in the event that an asymptomatic player test positive than that first run, he's done 2 negative tests in a row, and he's waiting his third negative test. What are the chances that third negative test, they're awaiting results on a Canucks game day or a Jackets game day or a Stars game day or whatever? The result isn't in, but the player says he feels good to go, and the team physician says, well, I think you're good to go, so let's get you in a game. I'm not trying to say like physicians will do this. Like, obviously there's some huge red tape with like provincial health authorities if they were to defy that. But I just think of what you brought up earlier. Justin Turner was pulled mid-game because he tested positive. It's like, why is he playing without an approved negative test in the first place?
And then once you found out, why did you just let him run back into all his teammates? Like, literally, there's a shot of him, like, hugging his girlfriend. It's like...
And kissing everybody. Like, what the fuck, man?
Like, oh my God. I was livid. And then I was so livid at that. I'll say this. Before, if you had asked me, like, if we were talking about this, say, before any of the return to play stuff had happened last summer, during the summer, I would think I would be a lot more pessimistic about how it's going to go. But when the NHL, and this is obviously different scenario, but the whole bubble with everything that went through the bubble and everything, nobody tested positive the entire playoffs, I don't believe. Or I think maybe there was one, or it was
I
like
feel like
something
they had no positive tests in the actual
right.
bubble itself.
It was
Maybe
a
I think in the
finite
return to
amount.
play, there was like, I know Tampa had
There
their
was
one
some
outbreak
leading
at the
up.
start and stuff like that. But when
Right.
they actually got to the bubble itself, it was like smooth sailing the entire way.
Yeah. I trust the NHL to take this seriously based on that. I
Mhm.
trust them to get it right, which because I didn't have that faith in them before. I was
Yeah.
like, there's absolutely going to be some
Yeah.
outbreaks here. I did not have any faith that they could get it done because the NHL has consistently struggled at that kind of stuff. Um, but right now they have my confidence. They have my
Mhm.
confidence and my belief that they can get it, that they can get through these
Yeah.
through this season without any COVID cases, and should one come up, that they'll handle it responsibly and seriously.
Right.
The onus is on them not to let us down, and more importantly, their players
Yeah,
down
for sure.
on that regard, because you could jeopardize careers that way
Yeah.
if
The
you're
the
not
last
careful.
thing the league needs is, Max Domi is out for the next 2 years because of complications from COVID-19 during the season or whatever. Like
Yeah,
that is a disaster for them.
yeah.
And like Domi, like
I
he's
believe he's
obviously
diabetic. I believe.
he's like a type 1 diabetic or something like that. So
Yeah,
he's obviously a hockey player and he's going to play through whatever ailment he has. Like, even if it's like the most negative effect that could have on him, and you hope that the league does good by the players. I
and their teams look out for their best interest
Yes.
versus, or for the players' best interest
Hmm.
rather than their own in this in they should in all cases, but especially
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a 30-year-old who's just a bit older than you, I've had more years of cynicism and pessimism and misery, so that's why I'm kind of looking at this through the fog of misery and
That's good. That's good.
awfulness.
You gotta have pro and con
Yeah,
on every show. You gotta have some
exactly.
you gotta have the angel and the devil
Yes.
on all that, right?
Yeah. So we're not going to dive in or stay on this topic a bit longer.
That's sad.
It's too depressing. It's sad, and like
Ugh.
I need hockey to come back so badly. We all do now that BC COVID restrictions are extended till February. Like, it's another month of getting to know yourself and the person that's living with you or whatever, and that's a long time. So enough depressing stuff. Let's get into fun things. We've got more trade rumors with Patrik Laine and now Pierre-Luc Dubois. To the surprise of no one, those stars of Columbus and Winnipeg want out, allegedly. So
I like both of these teams, like their
yeah,
franchises and their fan bases, quite a bit.
yes.
So I feel bad for them that they have to deal with this. Like,
I am a diehard Jets fan. Like, I loved Teemu Solani growing up, and then when he moved, it sucked. But then it was like, okay, I'll just be an Anaheim fan from now on. And then their team moves, and it's just like they get it back, and they do all this rebuilding. They get Paul Stastny. They
do a
make
really
a
good
huge
job
run,
rebuilding too.
and then everything falls apart at the same time. Like, the proof that you can do everything right, but it doesn't matter. Like, things can just go wrong for you like that. And it's not even just Patrik Laine. Like, I don't even think he's even said like, "Oh, I want out." He just wanted a better center. But then
He
you
just
have
wants
like,
more help. Yeah.
yeah, he's like, I don't think Brian Little and I are a good fit. And like, sure, like, he's right. Like, it was an awkward fit. And if he just came off like this crazy postseason with Paul Stastny, where like him and Ehlers were lighting it up every game and in the playoffs too, of course, like going from that into Brian Little, like the next season, like you're going to be kind of like, ooh, this isn't what I signed up for at all. And
Yeah.
so like, I don't think he's actually asked for a trade now that Stastny's back too. Like, I feel like I don't think I don't think he's demanding a trade as far as I know. I think it's just like the Winnipeg media is like, he wants out because he had problems before. But like I as a Jets fan, I'm absolutely hype and hoping that Stastny like kind of has that same pedigree that he had like a couple of years ago. Like he's pretty old, but like I'm pretty hyped for that because that Laine, Ehlers, Stastny line was so effing fun to watch.
Vegas liked him. They only got rid of him, I believe, for cap reasons, right? So
they wanted a brand new shiny toy. They saw Pietrangelo in the market and were like, how do we get him? Let's get rid of someone we just got and gave up a lot for.
And now everyone on their team is mad.
Yeah, Nate Schmidt, even in his little thing, is like,
Nate Schmidt was the one that really caused issues there.
Yeah, pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, right now on their depth chart, they have Laine playing on that second line with Stastny and Kyle Connor, which is a good line. Which would be.
I feel like that's almost wrong because it's always been like Connor and Wheeler were always on the line.
This is based on what Daily Faceoff has going right now.
I think they go on camp rosters or something like that too. I'm pretty sure. Like they're constantly updating, so that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't even see Brian Little on this depth chart right now. He might be injured. Yeah, I don't know. He's the one that had like the brain bleed. He took a puck to the ear, and then they said originally it was a concussion, and then like it was a lot worse.
3 months later, before the return to play, they were like, yeah, he has like internal bleeding in his brain or something like that, and he's like toast. Yeah. So they had just like the worst luck basically for a franchise that did so much good drafting and developing to get where they are.
Yeah,
and like
you have all the issues with Dustin Byfuglien, whatever it went on there. Jacob Trouba, who's a great defenseman, he wanted out, but that was, I believe, more in line with just he wanted to go back to the States more than anything.
Yeah, he was considering like his wife's career options too, as like a nurse. I guess maybe she can't practice medicine in Canada, I guess, if she's going to school in the States. So
family always has to come first, I think, at the end of the day.
So like, I'm not going to fault the guy for wanting to like do what's what's in the best interest of his family. But then
it just hurts of the reputation for Winnipeg. It hurts a little, like to a degree, right?
It hurts more when like you're trying to acquire like free agents and they're like, well, your young stars that you like the prospects you guys have developed that are like actual stars, they won out after a couple of years. So like, why would I want to sign long term if it might be a dumpster fire?
And just this whole idea that Winnipeg is boring and nobody likes it there, and it's like. It's too bad. And Columbus is to a degree the same in the same spot where they're these two markets that are, from what I've heard, fun. They're interesting areas. They're not like these just boring, completely drab places.
No, I've been to Winnipeg. Cities. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's not New York City or anything. But
I went in the dead of winter. It's not that terrible.
So. Right, and so it just kind of sucks that it's happening to them most often of late. Because I don't think it's related to that. I just think, but it's not helping that. It's not helping that problem at all.
Yeah,
that reputation.
And it doesn't like so. On top of the Laine things, like it's kind of like when in Vancouver that people are like, oh, the Canucks want to trade Brock Besser. They're listening on Besser. Like it's probably like the same kind of thing. But then the other day they had their other center prospect. Jack Roslovic asked for a trade, like straight up asked for a trade. And his dad is the father of former Winnipeg Jet, Brendan Lemieux. Absolute cool guy. Watch Your Tone podcast member, Brendan Lemieux.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I think his dad's Claude Lemieux. So
yes, his dad is Claude Lemieux.
Yes. Yeah. So just a lot of bad news. I don't know. Maybe there's no way it could happen just because, like, I don't think the Jets have the assets for it, but maybe you try and like, hey, you want out of Columbus and hey, you want out of Winnipeg. Here's a trade for you. We're going to flip you to a city that everyone wants out of. So flip Roslovic and a bunch of crap to Columbus, and then Dubois goes up north to Winnipeg. I don't think.
You think it's going that way? The one I keep hearing is the Dubois Laine flip. That's what I keep hearing. That's the one that
I've heard that too. That makes more sense as a one for one plus like some extra stuff maybe, but like
And there's much less of a chance that you're going to lose on that 1-for-1 per se.
Yeah.
Because both of those players should be good. Yes, Patrik Laine is a little bit one-dimensional in his type of play. Like, he's very much a scorer, and that's kind of it. Yeah. But he's still a very good player.
His two-way game was like way better last year too. From when I watched, I was actually kind of shocked at how much better he looked than compared to even like their run for the Cup. But if you're Laine, the last place you want to get traded to is a John Tortorella team, because he will fucking hate you for everything that you bring to the table.
He will not love his time.
No,
in Columbus if he goes there. But I mean, if you want out, I don't believe he has any trade protection. So what are you gonna do, right? You might be kind of stuck if you want out.
He's an RFA with like arbitration at the end of it, so like he would have to play out this year, be miserable with Tortorella, and then cash out really hard if he wanted like some crazy ask at the end of his deal. But it's not looking too great for old Laine. I think he's gonna like he had the Elias Pettersson death stare when someone asked him about wanting or not wanting to play, and he was just like, "I'm here. What more do you want?"
Yeah,
that was so funny. I love that.
I think. Here's the thing. I think Laine will stay. I think he'll be. I think they will figure things out. It might take a coaching change. Honestly, it might take a coaching change.
Maybe
away from Paul Maurice. And frankly, if you're Winnipeg at this point, I mean, Laine is. I don't know if he's probably still your best player, more or less. Like, I mean, Blake Wheeler's
he's your
up there,
best
Connor Hellebuck
for sure.
Yeah, Connor Hellebuck is your
literal
MVP.
Literal MVP, Vezina
Hart Trophy candidate should be Connor Hellebuck.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the guys who are putting the puck in the net, Laine is your best players.
Yeah, Connor
easily.
Connor can score, Scheifele can score, Wheeler can score too, but like just like a raw like one-timer like Ovechkin style goal scorer, like he's all they have pretty much.
Right.
He won't wow you with like the moves and the dangles and stuff, but like just raw power, like that's a guy. There aren't many of those in the league, pretty much.
Right, but you should be doing the best thing you can do in that situation. You're not going to win a lot of trades with moving Patrik Laine. So the best thing you can do is make every possible accommodation that will make it work to a degree. To a certain degree. Yeah. Like if they're asking, and obviously if somebody makes insane requests, you don't have to fill them. Yeah. But it's that. But if it came down to this idea that Laine's not getting played the way that's best to get the best out of Patrik Laine, and you think moving the coach is going to make making a coaching change is going to make that difference. Because Paul Maurice is a much more defensively styled coach, and this team has. And
he loves his vets. He loves his older vets. So he's basically like Tortorella, except Tortorella's surprisingly way more inclined to trusting his like youth and stuff like that. So that's pretty rad.
Yeah. I think he is. So I think they will make every accommodation to make that fit. Dubois is a little bit more of an interesting conversation because apparently teammates aren't happy with everything that's going on, which
that's
is
spicy.
a much bigger problem and a much harder problem to solve. Because once your teammates are not a fan of you and are not exactly happy with you, it's very hard to regain that group's trust. So it might be more urgent for Columbus to move on from Dubois. I mean, it's going to be hard to make that sort of thing work. Columbus is pretty good about digging in their heels about that sort of thing, like when it's needed. Mm-hmm. Like Jarmo Kekalainen is did a really good job. I loved the direction they took the year they knew that Bobrovsky.
Yeah, when they were like, "This is it. Let's just fucking go nuts and try and do it." That's cool.
Let's try and win a cup. I love that. I want to encourage teams to be that creative and fun more on a regular basis, and they got the whole Tampa sweep out of it. So I would say, to the level, it was worth it.
Yeah.
I think that they're a group that's well managed. I think they've done a pretty good job dealing with these sorts of situations when they've come up. again, in those situations, maybe it wasn't necessarily a cloud hanging over your locker room and it wasn't becoming a cancer in that regard. I don't know if it's gotten to that point yet with Dubois that it can't be rekindled.
Right.
But you can't have forgiveness happen. But I mean, if he wants out and the team's not happy, you might need to make that move happen. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a difficult sell. Particularly because teams are not going to be giving you the offers, knowing you're the team that's needs to make the deal. Teams are not going to help you. No one's going to help you in that. You're going to get a bad deal for it, which is my way of saying, Jim Benning, pick up the phone, offer them Louis Eriksson, only a little bit more money for Louis. Yeah. Like,
what's the worst thing that happens?
Tortorella's going to love Louis Eriksson. Like he'll love him. He'll love him.
Like he would too.
Dubois will. Dubois. He's just okay.
Yeah, he's just a
will
kid.
Take him if they have to. If it's necessary. Like I suppose. But I mean, yeah, they're gonna have a hard time. They're gonna have a hard time moving him.
The real tragedy or the real cancer on the Blue Jackets is Seth Jones and his Twitter likes.
Oh boy, I've seen a couple. I don't want to look. I'm not gonna.
We won't get into it. We'll move on to our next topic because
that's
not working. Yeah. We'll let the broadcast handle that just because I know they'll have way funnier things to say about it. So
yes,
we'll move on to our next topic, which is one of sorry to make this episode so dour and like such a bummer, but
we've had some fun.
Yeah, the other major news that came out today was Corey Crawford. Sadly, he was decided to take an indefinite leave of absence from hockey due to personal reasons. I think everyone that follows hockey, even the slightest, knows like his struggles with concussions and what's been going on just in his career in the last 3 years, pretty much. And you hate to see it. You hope he's doing okay. Like mental health is probably the most important thing that we can take care of, especially during COVID. Like it's a struggle for everybody, not just the people at the bottom like me and you, but like even rich millionaire pro athletes, like they're having it hard too. And it's times like these that you got to put yourself first. So
money can't fix these problems. That's
it's
made pretty clear. You can't fix no amount of money. Yes, it's a little easier when you live in a nice house with nice everything and you can do a lot more from your home than order food in every day, but it's still not, that doesn't make it any easier on your head and your mental state at all.
As someone who doesn't make $1 million, I still order food every day and it's not really helping. So Corey, the CreaseCast wishes you the best, man. Yes. Chicago, Vancouver aside, take care of yourself. You're the goalie guy, so I'll let you say anything about his career you want. Go for it, man.
Corey Crawford is a guy who's fought through a lot of stuff, and not just even off the ice. He's fought through lots of questions about whether he was, his goaltending abilities, and whether whether he was just being carried by a great team, by a great team in front of him in the Blackhawks. For a long time, and he's dealt with, I believe, some other stuff as well as concussions. As what was it? I think there was something that came up relatively scary. That was I don't remember what it was, but it was a pretty life-threatening illness came up before all the COVID stuff. Yeah, great. He's a guy who's fought for every single inch of ice that he's gotten at this level and at the pro level. He was a rock for the Blackhawks for a very long time. And he made a big difference for them, and he is often underappreciated for what he's been able to do. Yeah. I mean, he rarely got looks even from internationally from Team Canada and everything else.
He played in one World Cup, I think, and it
was
the one time they won gold, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and I think he was the third. Even then, he was the third string behind Holtby and Carey Price, of course, who was the big guy at that.
It's a tough lineup to crack, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hell yeah. He's been a tremendous goaltender and often underappreciated. And I think when we look back on it, when his career officially ends at some point, which maybe we've seen him play his last game here. This might be it.
Yeah.
It was going to be interesting to see him play with the Devils. I was looking forward to seeing him get that opportunity to play with a.
It would have been one of those weird things that we were talking about last episode where it's just weird, like a player that'll look very bizarre in a different jersey, seeing him in a Devils jersey.
Right.
But yeah, so like what do the Devils do now? Like they have Mackenzie Blackwood, who was pretty much their starter last year, but now they're back.
I assumed he was going to be more. It was going to be a pretty close, even split between them even this year. So
yeah,
Blackwood,
like
but now Blackwood has no backup. Yeah,
his backup is basically their AHL goalie, Gilles Sen, who he was actually pretty decent in the AHL from what I watched, but obviously you're missing a ton of leadership and veteran play from a guy like Crawford. But like all of this, like what do the Devils do? Like that literally doesn't matter. Like his health is obviously first, and the Devils aren't in like even remotely close to contending or being in a place like to contend or be going for playoffs. So like who gives a crap if they're stuck with 2 AHL goalies as their starters? So yeah, who cares? They'll be fine. They'll develop whatever.
I mean, there are guys available. There are guys available right now, even if they're a bit of a risk. Like, I mean, you could get like Jimmy Howard. That might be where you end up going. He was really, really bad last year, but that might be the direction you need to look. I mean, a couple. Richard Bachman is out there.
I think he actually retired. He's the.
Oh right, he officially retired.
He's Iowa's goalie coach, I believe.
Cap Friendly still has him as active, but I will. But yeah,
That's
looks
a complaint.
like I believe that's a free agent. Include free agent. Yeah, these are the free agent players.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Classic.
There's not much left. It might just be more or less Jimmy Howard.
The Jimmy Howard sweepstakes, as we all expected for 2021.
Yeah. But hey, I mean, if you're just going to play him as a backup every few often, I mean, the Devils aren't competing right now. So
it's a 56 game season. Like if you have Jimmy Howard and he's like starts, 10 games or 8 games, exactly. If you have 3 goalies rotating in and out, like no one's going to claim Jimmy Howard if you send him to the taxi squad, if it means getting Gilles Sen like a couple games in his place. Yeah. It's not the end of the world. Like I said, they're not trying to contend at this point. Like their window is a long ways away.
That division is they're not going to crack that group. They're not going to crack that group. And I think they know that. I think they're pretty. I don't think they're delusional about we're going to make the playoffs or something this year. Even with with Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier. Jack Hughes. They're not going to. They're not going to crack that playoff group. So it's mostly just about can you fill bodies? Don't let people get hurt. Don't overplay anybody. Mm-hmm. Mackenzie Blackwood is your goalie of the future, more or less. So don't cook the guy. Don't cook the guy in a year you don't have to. Bring in a guy like Jimmy Howard just to fill time and to fill seasons. And he's a veteran presence. You never know what you could get out of them from an off-ice level even.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that pretty much wraps up what we wanted to talk about today. Sorry, that's so full of bummer news. I hope we're not rude.
Where's that positive vibes only shirt?
I actually debated getting like a white crappy shirt and writing negative vibes only on it.
Oh no.
And maybe I'll wear it. I'll just like rotate between the 2 shirts for every episode depending on like the topics of the day.
What you need is a reversible shirt. You just need like a shirt that's like it says positive vibes on this side and then on the underneath you just flip it over and it's maybe preferably different colors on both sides.
Like, one's red.
One's red.
Red for anger.
Yeah.
But yeah, next episode, we're going to be recording next Tuesday, which should be after the roster lock. It should be when taxi squads and the AHL is...
One day before the season, before hockey gets going.
Before we actually get into real NHL games for the Scotia North Division. So we got some fun things planned. We're going to... be recording our season predictions and hot takes in that episode. So we're going to be guessing the number of games and the points for the taxi squad and the lineup, doing some over-unders, and we'll be guessing what we think the rankings are going to be for the North Division. So it's going to be great. You can follow me at Cody Sievertson, and I'll be posting little bingo sheets of our prediction sheets that you guys can follow along. You can join in. And then you can bring it up later in the season when we're horribly wrong and you want to on us for being idiots. So it'll be great. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Patreon. We got $5 bonus episodes. We might talk more about Iron Man 2 and why it's the worst thing ever. We don't have time right now to get to that, but it'll be a Marvel anthology episode. 400 hours worth of documented debate.
Yes. $5 a month gets you all our bonus episodes that we do every month, and we do about 4. We do one a week. So
yeah,
there's good value. That's a really good value for what you're getting, especially if you like movies and TV stuff talk. And we'll do some hockey stuff for sure. We'll do that.
We'll throw some in there. We'll try and debate how you could ice the best hockey team out of Marvel characters, and then we'll go from there.
Oh hell yeah! I have that doc somewhere already on my drive somewhere. I already started it. Yes. Oh yeah. Hell yeah.
Lachlan, where can they find you?
So you can find my work at lachandthecrease.com. I have articles coming out pretty quickly here. I believe I have something coming out tomorrow, or the day you're getting this podcast, probably.
Sweet.
On lachandthecrease.com. And yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Lach and the Crease.
Beauty. If you guys want to follow me, like I said, Cody Sievertson on Twitter. I don't give out my Instagram because I don't want you creeps looking at my photos. Follow me at my website, cometsharvest.com. I don't have anything coming up because I just did 2 articles in like a span of a week, and
You've done plenty. You've done your few.
That is a year's worth of writing. I am good for the year. My game recaps will be starting in February. Until then, though, you'll be catching us on the CreaseCast from here on out. Thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate it a lot.
Yes, thank you.
Y'all.
Yep. See you, everybody.
Bye.